Hey guys, you may have heard in the news recently that drink spiking is getting worse. It seems to be increasing, and not only that, there have been reports of people getting injected as well on nights out, getting spiked via injection. So, in this week's video, we're going to look at the symptoms to be aware of. We're going to look at what you need to do if it happens to you or someone that you're with, and most importantly, what you can do to try and help prevent it from happening. So this is going to be a relatively long video, jam-packed full of information. So if at any point you want to find any specific piece of information, I will leave it all in the description below. It's going to be chaptered, section by section. However, as I always say, I would highly recommend that you watch the entire video. That way you're going to learn everything that you need to know. Okay, so let's begin with why it's important to be made aware of drink spiking and getting spiked by injection. Well, here in the UK, unfortunately, we're going through a bit of an epidemic with drink spiking. In the past 3 years, the number of crimes that have been committed for drink spiking has actually doubled. Now, between 2015 and 2018, here in the UK, the number of crimes that have been committed has gone up by 108%, which is a massive increase. And not only that, these are merely just the statistics that are given by the government. However, you've got to remember, there's probably so many cases out there that aren't getting reported because people aren't even aware that this has happened, or they've forgotten, or they've blacked out. We're going to go through them symptoms a bit later, but remember, these are official statistics, but there are going to be loads of people that probably haven't reported, so the numbers are probably much higher. And research has shown that females are far more likely to become victims of spiking. Around 71% of cases are in females, so I really hope that everyone finds this information helpful. Okay, so first of all, let's begin with what is drink spiking. So drink spiking is when an unknown substance is added to someone's drink. Let's say that someone's giving me a drink and they put any substance in it without my knowledge of it. So whether it's alcohol or any drug, they put it in there and I'm not aware of it and I drink it. Now when I have this, it's going to affect my behavior. That is drink spiking. Now drink spiking is illegal, and even if the person who's being spiked is not abused or assaulted, it is still illegal. And if you are caught spiking someone's drink, you can face a jail sentence because it's illegal. So spiking a drink is usually a deliberate act, and people usually think it's when someone slips some drugs in there, but it isn't just that. It's far more broad than that. I'm going to have some information pop up here, and like I said, even if someone's adding alcohol to it or more alcohol, or if they're adding any drugs to it like benzodiazepines, ecstasy, any form of drug in there, this is all a form of drink spiking. Now you might be thinking to yourself, well, why would someone do such a thing? Well, unfortunately, there are some sick people out there that want to spike someone's drink, modify their behavior, and then potentially steal from them, or even worse, rape them or sexually abuse them. And as we know from the research, females are far more likely to be victims of drink spiking. Around 71% of cases are in females. And I think a lot of people think, oh, drink spiking will never happen to me. You know, I go out with my friends. But remember, it could be anyone that spikes your drinks, whether it's a friend or a stranger. So please bear that in mind. Now, we will talk about this a bit later on as well. Now, before we move on to the symptoms, I just want to quickly brush up on needle spiking as well. This seems to be, there have been reports that it's increasing as well. This is when an unknown substance is injected directly into the person, into the victim, without them knowing, without their consent. And unfortunately, it's far more dangerous because we can get far more side effects and a much faster mode of action. Because remember, this is a needle, it's going to go directly into your bloodstream soon, so the effects are going to be very quick. Now, the most common drugs used in needle spiking seem to be GHB and Rohypnol. These are all central nervous depressants, and they're going to affect how you behave. So like I say, getting spiked by a needle is far more dangerous. We will discuss the symptoms of them next. Okay, so now let's move on to the symptoms of drink spiking. Now, before we move on to that, I want you to remember this. When we're looking at drugs, for example, each drug will affect every individual differently, okay? So always bear that in mind. Also remember, it depends on the dose that you're given. It depends on your size as well, on your age, how tall you are, how much you weigh. All of these factors can affect how you are affected with that medication or that drug that you've been given, okay? So bear that in mind. So don't think to yourself, these are the symptoms, and if I don't have these, or if I've got very minor ones of these, I haven't been spiked. Remember these symptoms, and remember they affect people differently. We all act differently to drugs, so just remember that and bear that in mind. So if your drink has been spiked, the symptoms usually start to show within 5 to 20 minutes, give or take. These are the kind of rough figures to bear in mind. It could be a bit longer, it could be a bit shorter. If you have been needle spiked, the symptoms are going to come across much quicker, because remember, it's not having to go into your stomach and absorb into your bloodstream. This is direct, so it's going to go into your bloodstream. We're talking seconds, 30, 60 seconds potentially before the symptoms come. The symptoms that we're looking out for, I'm going to have a box here that pops up for the common symptoms that you get from drink spiking or needle spiking, so bear these in mind. Feel free to pause the video, give them a good read. But usually the first sort of symptoms that we get, there might be some feelings of euphoria, there might be some sleepiness symptoms, you might be feeling confused, you might not know what's going on. So these are like the most common symptoms, but please do read the full list as well and try to remember them. Now, another symptom that I really want you to be aware of, this is probably one of the most important symptoms for you to be aware of, and I would be very concerned if this happened, is muscle weakness, because this can sometimes be as a result from high doses of certain drugs. So if you feel like you can barely hold on to things, if you can barely hold on to your glass, let's say, or if you can barely hold your weight up and you're struggling to stand, or if you're with someone and you think they might have been spiked, get them to hold onto your hand, get them to grip onto your hand, see how much strength they've got, or tell them to push back against you, see how much strength they've got. If you feel like muscle weakness is occurring, this could be as a result of a very high drug that they've been given, that they've been spiked with, and it can potentially result in comas and deaths. So this is a really important symptom to be aware of. And as we discussed, needle spiking has very similar symptoms as well, but again, remember, the onset is rapid. We're talking seconds here because it's going straight into the bloodstream. There's going to be a pop-up here already with the symptoms to be aware of. Feel free to, again, pause the video, give them a read, and try to remember them. It's really important that you read them and try to remember these short points. Okay guys, so we've now looked at the symptoms. The next thing we need to know is what to do if you think you've been spiked or someone you're with has been spiked. So the first thing you need to do, so tip number one, alert people. Alert, alert, alert. Let your friends know, let the people that you're with know. If you've got your friends on message that you know and trust, let them know as well. So get your phone out, let them know. Let the people who are there know as well, the bouncers, the bar staff, let them know. The more people who are aware of what's going on, the safer you are going to be. Moving on to tip number two, which is all about going to a safe place and keeping an eye on that person. This is the most important thing. If there's a few of you, a few friends, all of you go to that safe place together, keep an eye on your friend. Now, if you do decide that it's okay for them to go home, make sure that they're not going home on their own. This is one of the most important things. Make sure they're not going home, and make sure that the person who's taking them home is someone that you trust, okay? It's not some stranger who's offered to take them home, anything like that. Make sure it's someone that you trust. And most importantly, if someone is feeling like this, that you think they've been spiked, make sure they stop drinking alcohol straight away, okay? That's the most important thing that we need to do as well. And moving on to tip number three, make sure to get help if you feel like the situation is getting worse. So if you feel like the person that you're with, their symptoms are getting worse, they're deteriorating quite rapidly, they're getting more sleepy, they're hallucinating, they're vomiting, you feel like things are getting really out of hand here, you need to get help. You need to call 999, call for an ambulance straight away, and also make sure to contact the police as well, so that the police can get involved, as the police will need to do some tests as well, some urine tests to check for the drugs that are being given and administered, so make sure to contact the police as well. So tip number three is all about getting help. Now, in cases of needle spiking, the same kind of tips apply, however, we need to go to A&E straight away. Now, the first thing you need to do if you suspect you've been needle spiked or a friend of yours has been needle spiked is find the injection site, make sure to clean it with some water and cover it, okay? The second thing you need to go to hospital straight away. Do not wait. The reason I'm telling you this is if you have been needle spiked, most likely that needle has been used on multiple people. Therefore, you're at a high risk of HIV, hepatitis, these kinds of bloodborne diseases. So you need to go to hospital straight away to potentially get treatment for it. Okay, so now we've discussed the symptoms and what to do. I've tried to make it very simple and easy, step by step on what to do. So I hope you're finding this information helpful so far. The next thing that I want to discuss is also really important, and it's how to prevent potentially getting your drink spiked. So tip number one is always keep an eye on your drink. Make sure that you're buying your own drinks, and make sure not to accept drinks from strangers who come up to you and say, oh, you know, have this drink or whatever. Don't accept it without watching how it was made. That's the most important thing. If you are going to accept a drink from a stranger, Go to the bar with them, watch the drink being made, and then you can drink it because you're happy that nothing's being put in there. But do not accept a drink from a stranger just out of nowhere who's offering you to have a sip of their drink or offering you a drink. That's really, really important to bear in mind. Also, if you go into the toilet, again, the main thing to remember is that you're watching, you're keeping an eye on your drink. So if you go to the toilet, don't just leave your drink there on the side. Leave it with a trusted friend that you know and trust, that you know it will be safe with, and nothing is going to happen to it, or it's not going to get tampered with. Now, moving on to tip number 2. Now, it's not an exact science because unfortunately, if someone has spiked your drink, most likely it's not going to taste any different to you or smell any different, or the color's probably not going to change. But keep an eye on it. Like we said, we're going to be watching our drink constantly. So if you've come back, if you're drinking your drink all of a sudden and it tastes differently, or it looks different, or it smells different, stop drinking that drink immediately, okay? That is very important. However, like I said, it's not an exact science. Most of the time, from what we've done from the research, the drinks don't change in smell, they don't change in taste, so it's quite unlikely that you're going to realize this. But if anything does seem a bit fishy, just leave that drink. Moving on to tip number 3, try to buy drinks that are in bottles rather than drinks that are in a glass, let's say. The reason being is this glass is far more easier to slip something into it to spike it, whereas if you've got a bottle, you can put your thumb over it, it's far less likely to get spiked. It's a lot harder. If you think about it, it's a small hole, it's harder to get something in, and you can keep your thumb on it, so you're going to be safer. Moving on to tip number 4, if you spot anything suspicious, or if you see anyone spiking someone's drink, make sure to let the people know that. Make sure to let the bouncers know, make sure to let the bartenders know, make sure to let the hosts know that this is going on so they can do something about it. This is really important for preventing it happening to other people as well. So we're not just thinking about ourselves here, we're thinking about other people as well. If you spot something suspicious, if you see someone doing something suspicious or handling something suspicious in their hands, spot it and report it. And tip number 5, some venues actually might be able to help with this. Some of them might provide you with special plastic tops that you can put on your drink to prevent them from getting spiked. If they don't do this, you can look at buying some. There's loads online now that you can buy, and they're very reasonably priced as well. You can reuse them as well and carry them with you. They're very small and thin, so you can just carry them with you, put them on top of your drink to prevent it from happening in the first place. Now, the final part of this video, I want to discuss where to get additional help on top of the information already provided in this video. Now, if it's an emergency, please remember to call for an ambulance, call for the police. That is the most important thing that you need to remember. Now, one of the very worrying things about drink spiking or needle spiking is that memory loss that can happen, that confusion of not knowing exactly what has happened. Now, if you feel like you have been physically assaulted or sexually assaulted, or something just doesn't feel right, please speak to someone who's close to you that you're able to open with, someone who is there with you that you can talk to, just to reflect and find out what happened that night. And if it still just doesn't feel right, remember, you can always go to the police, you can always go to the hospital services to get more advice and help. And also there's many charities as well available that you can speak to. There's a rape crisis helpline as well. I will leave loads of information about all of these, by the way, in the description below. So if you do feel like you need to speak to someone about this, please click on that description, find the relevant charity, find the relevant helpline and speak to them, or just go straight to the police or go straight to the hospital departments. So I really hope that you found this information helpful. It's really sad to hear that drink spiking is increasing so rapidly, and needle spiking, the reports that are coming out about this happening, is really concerning. It's just one of the reasons why I was so passionate about making this video and making more people aware of it. I really hope that you found this information helpful. You now know all about the symptoms of drink spiking, you know about the symptoms of needle spiking, you know what to do, and you know where to get help from. So please stay safe and remember the preventative tips that we spoke about as well. I really hope you find this information helpful. Remember to tell your friends, tell your family, tell everyone that you know about these tips that you've learned, or just share the video to them if that's easier. I really hope it helped. Thank you for watching this week's video. Always remember you're awesome, and I will see you next week. Hey guys, thanks for watching this week's video. Make sure to click that like, follow or subscribe button now to stay up to date with new weekly videos.